Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in and coming to this month's episode of CAD Chats. If this is your first time tuning in, we do this once a month, usually the last Thursday of the month, and we get to talk to real designers who are actually using CAD software, whether that be Illustrator, Procreate, Clo3d, Browseware, Style 3D, the whole gamut of all the many tools that we get to use as designers. So this goes very, very fast all the time. So I'm going to get right into it and introduce our, I'll let her introduce herself, but our guest for this evening, and that is Astrid. Yay!
Yay!
All right. Yeah, I got the sound effects popping this time.
Nice. I like it.
All right.
Thank
and I'm
you,
going to solo you.
Thank you, Mikkel. It's so great to be a part of the program and to chat with you about 3D fashion. My name's Astrid. I'm a 3D fashion designer and knitwear designer. I used to work in New York City, and now I split my time between New York and the west coast of Mexico. I grew up in Germany and went to fashion college there as well. And I sort of took a bit more of a traditional path in fashion education in that after high school, I started a 3-year apprenticeship as a tailor with a luxury couture brand in Munich. And then after that, I went to fashion college. And the reason for that was really like a little with my mom, who is very pragmatic and a realistic person. And when I told her I wanted to be a fashion designer, she's like, okay, that's great, but what if you can't make it? Always the realist. And she was like, well, you always love to sew and make your own clothes. So why don't you think about, working as a tailor? And I thought about it, and I said, well, that's actually, I hadn't, something that didn't come to mind before you do fashion design. And it really gave me a great understanding for construction and sewing techniques. So, I mean, it was time like well spent. And then after college, I went to New York and I got an internship, again, very traditional sort of like timeline in fashion. I got an internship with Mark Eisen. And then I started working at a contemporary sweater company, and we had clients like Saks Fifth Avenue, Nordstrom, various small boutiques, and many private label clients. And I worked as a knitwear designer for quite a while there. And at some point before the pandemic, I got laid off and started basically freelancing. And that was really my first introduction as well into 3D fashion. Because it was something new, and I figured like I can learn it remote as well, and it keeps me at the forefront of the industry.
So the 3D software, that was something that you just decided that you wanted to do, or did you decide that you wanted to learn it out of necessity because you felt like you needed to in order to freelance?
So I had actually seen on LinkedIn a bunch of posts from Stitch, which was, I think at this point, they merged with another company. And they showed like, 3D avatars. And in my previous workplace, our factory from China had actually sent us a couple times like digital avatars. And they were super basic, like, like a pose. And the T-shirt looked crazy, but they're like, oh, you can make some comments there. And it struck me. I'm like, oh, this is kind of the same thing. I hadn't connected the dots before. And so I looked into that, and I was like, okay, what fashion software exists in 3D? And I happened to connect with Browseware. And that's sort of like that's where the whole kind of like journey began.
Gotcha. So you used V-Stitcher. Is that your primary tool, or do you use other things?
So I would say I mostly use Browser vStitcher. I mean, I've been using that for about 4 years now. I got accepted in the beginning into the indie program and became part of the Browser Guild. And that's how I got some of my first 3D jobs. And now I added Style 3D into the mix. And just for comparison, it took me probably 3 years to really get comfortable with Browser vStitcher. And now I just got the certification for Style 3D in 3 months or so. So I think
Wow.
the more you sort of learn the programs, the easier it is to kind of pick up similarities and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Now I'm going to, I won't say play devil's advocate, but just your opinion. Do you feel like you picked it up as quickly as you did because you already are you've been using Browser for a while, or do you feel like Style 3D is just an easier program?
So I know that Style 3D is more closely related to Clo3d. And in the beginning, I sort of had been waffling between Browser and Clo, and I worked through both programs, and somehow Browser stuck with me. And I don't know. I feel like, the certain things are very similar with the programs, but certain things it's like a left brain, right brain thing that I just couldn't kind of work through. Style 3D, I do think, I don't know, is easier to learn, but it also has a bunch more functions where you can really look under the hood and do a lot more than in vStitcher. So that's sort of interesting. And I feel because I've been working in Blender and, Dust 3D and Adobe Substance, they all sort of have individual components. It just makes it easier to connect the dots with the different softwares.
Now you just threw out a few more software, so I'm going to ask you, can you run down the list of the other ones that you're using?
Yeah, so it's not that I'm collecting software. That's not the case. It does take me a while. But basically, I try to test out and use any digital fashion software that I can get my hands on with a free trial and, see if it works with my workflow. And I've definitely used a bunch of free trials with the different softwares to see how I like them, what's different, what they have in common. And I mentioned before, I've even reached out to the companies to see if I could get an extended trial as a freelancer, just because sometimes it's 2 weeks or a month, and that's really not enough time to, learn or get familiar with the software.
Sure.
And it works sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't, but I think it's worth a try. I think especially with 3D, I think in general, people are very willing to share their knowledge and share their software. So yeah, it doesn't hurt. It's worth a try. So any software I can use, I will test out. So I mentioned obviously Browser vStitcher. I got my certification recently on Style 3D, another 3D fashion design software. I use Blender. I'm not proficient in Blender at all, but I can set up a scene and I can render with different lights and things like that. So Blender also works. I use Dust 3D mostly to get avatars. I spend way too much money on 3D assets on Dust 3D. It's oh, there's another shoe, or oh my God, there's a new avatar, or there's
you are not the only person I've heard say that they have spent a lot of money in Dust.
Yes. So but it's great. It's really fun. Now the exporting from Dust 3D into Browser or Style 3D is not perfect. The textures sometimes don't really come over, but you can make it work. Okay, then Adobe Substance. I started learning that now, just mostly for more intricate textures like beading and embroidery, which really the other 3D software doesn't really provide as well. So it's great to sort of like do that externally, do the textures, and then bring it into the program and apply it to, the garment that you're working on. And then obviously AI software, like Midjourney, Newark AI, Stable Diffusion, those I'm testing. And to me, they're great for like ideation.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So, having said all that, what is it that you enjoy the most about using all of this software?
So I have a very technical mind, so I do love tinkering with the softwares. But that aside, I think what I like the most is the creative freedom it provides me. I can really quickly experiment with different fabrics and colors and patterns without the constraints of waiting for a factory to make a proto or like sewing it myself. And again, now with the help of AI, you can make everything so realistic that it's just really great for like client presentations, for example.
Yeah. I saw something you did recently on LinkedIn, and it was Luma, I think Luma AI or something
Yeah,
like that.
Luma and Runway, those are two new software programs. Not You don't have to download them; you can do them online. They do image to video or text to video, and I've been basically throwing some of my 3D renders in there and sort of like see what it looks animated as like a movie type thing. And
Wow.
that's really fun too. It takes a while because again, I'm trying to use free credits and that, so you get at the back of the line of everyone
Right.
else who's working in it. But it's really fun to sort of like, just work on that.
I gotta play with that. It was one was Luma, and what was the other one?
The other one is Runway AI.
Runway AI. Okay, I'm putting these in the chat for
Yeah.
anybody else who wants to play with those because they were really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do you think is most beneficial about using digital fashion software, whether that's 3D or even 2D?
Yeah. So I think digital fashion software, again, whether it's Adobe or whether it's like any 3D software, I think it's a great tool to really get every stakeholder on board in the design process. Everyone can see the ideas created and a realistic render and see the shapes and the colors. And I think it really bridges the gaps in understanding between design and technical team and factory. That to me is kind of really the biggest thing, because I remember that from my work in various companies, the merchandising, the design team would design something, and then the merchandising team would be like, well, we need to see all styles and all colors in the showroom,
Oh my
because
gosh.
otherwise our buyer can't see what they want to buy, which
Yeah.
in
I
this day
remember
and
those
age,
times.
with sustainability and with making 1,000 samples for like a fall collection, it's crazy. It's just not workable. So now
Yeah.
with 3D, I think it's a much better system to really get everyone on board.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, do you have a favorite tool or function? And since you named so many different software, I'm gonna say in VStitcher.
Okay, so in VStitcher, actually, it's a sort of like kind of weird function. It's called the cut mark function.
Uh,
You draw an internal line, you apply the cut mark function, and then you can add a different fabric or color to that part without actually having to cut the whole pattern with a cutting line. And I'm an okay pattern maker, but I'm not trained as such with grading. So whenever I have to cut a pattern and then afterwards I'm like, oh, I really shouldn't have done that. I need this pattern back together again. So for me, it's great because the cut mark function is like not permanent. And if I don't need that line, or like I don't need that pattern, the part anymore, I can just delete the internal line and it's good as new. So that's, I think,
Gotcha.
my favorite function in vStitcher.
How about Style 3D? Do you have one yet?
Well, I don't have a favorite function yet, but overall, I have to say I love the animations and how easy it is to do them. They also have a huge library of like different sort of like movements. And that was always my problem in like vStitcher
Yeah.
because of my PC processor speed. It was like, 2 days later, she would have moved her leg or something. Um, I don't know. That's just crazy. But in Style 3D, like you can do like a super easy animation, and even if you don't do it, as a V-Ray render, it still looks pretty decent. So I think you can get away with that. And so animations in Style 3D, I think they're great.
Yeah, I've heard, I've gotten approached a few times about Style 3D, and it was sort of like, okay, it's one too many things right now. But like in the last, probably like a year, this last year, I've heard more people talking about it and more
Yes.
people are starting to use it. And they've all said things like that, like, oh, it's easier to do this, or it's easier to do blah, blah, blah. It's a lot easier, definitely easier than Browseware, but even easier than Clo. And a lot of people feel like there's a lot that's easy and simple in Clo. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, easier than Clo. Wow. That's
Yeah.
saying something. Okay, so what has been the most challenging thing you've created using any digital software, and then what's been the most fun?
Okay. So, okay. Well, I would say the most challenging project I had to date was creating digital twins for athleisure garments. And now you would think that athleisure, like a hoodie or like a jogger, it's not that hard and the shapes are
Right.
simple. No, the thing was like I had to create very specific pleating techniques and piping. And, there are just certain things that the 3D software doesn't really do super realistically. I
Yeah.
mean, I can sew like pleats by hand, and it was like a honeycomb pleat. So, like it had the threads on the outside and sort of a super high texture. And I can do that by hand in 10 minutes. But oh my God, I was in the software program, it's just not very natural. So I
Yeah.
had to find all these workarounds. And I was like basically the whole time working in a particle distance of like 0.1 in
Oof.
vStitcher, which is insane, which would
Yeah.
be like a 1 or something in Clo maybe, if, yeah, 1 or 3, which is
Yeah.
like teeny tiny,
Still
you know,
bad. Still
and it was
slow.
just slowing everything down. It was pretty crazy. So that was, doing pleats when the fabric doesn't want to be pleated. It was nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
The most fun one, I think, was a denim boiler suit for like a young streetwear designer from New York, and the label's called Royal Priesthood. And it had like lots of denim washes and rips and fabric patches, so like a lot of interesting textures. And it was such a great collaboration. And when he showed me the actual photo shoot of the final garment, they basically replicated almost everything I did in 3D.
Wow.
And it was so great
Nice.
to see. It really validated like all the work, the rips and the tears. And I was like, wait, is that my style, like my 3D, or is it that? And he's like, no, that's the photo shoot. So I'm like, oh my God, that's
Wow.
amazing.
That's so cool. That
Yeah.
is so cool. Now, my next question is if you're working on any new projects, but I also want to show something that Kitty Young, Dr. Kitty Young mentioned today on LinkedIn. And so while I'm bringing that up, do you have other things that you are working on currently?
Yes, actually, I'm helping to organize the next IACDE 3D Summit. And for
Wow.
those who don't know what it is, the IACDE is a global organization of tailors and pattern makers, and it has 6 chapters spread across the globe. And the 3D Summit happens every year. The kickoff is usually in November, and we present the themes, and then everyone can pick their favorite themes and work on their 3D designs. And usually then we meet like the following April for like a final presentation. And the goal of the 3D Summit is to promote and democratize really like 3D product development for pattern makers and technical designers, and also to exchange like knowledge and innovation. So we have workshops, in Blender and in different like 3D programs. And I've been taking part. This is going to be my 4th one this year. And this year the theme is 1920s and 1930s fashion. So like
Nice.
flappers and femme fatales. And I think we'll have a lot of luxury fabrics and beading and embroidery. So I'm really excited about that.
Now, is that like the final event? Is that something that anybody can attend, or do you have to like have certain credentials to get into that?
No, so you don't have to be a member of the IACDE chapter. I've actually just become a member now. But when you work on your assignment, you sign up, you work on your assignment, you can take part in the workshops, and you can take part in using the 3D assets that are provided, and also in the final presentation. And we always have breakout rooms with the different design softwares. So it's a really, really cool collaborative environment. And you can get all the info on the iacde.net website. That has
Nice.
also like previous events and summits, and you can see like what we did there.
Nice. That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am going to share this because I went on here and I was like, this is really cool. So, hold on 1 minute. Okay, there it is. So this is on wearit.ai.
Correct. Yes, exactly.
And so tell us about this because this looks cool.
So I connected with Kitty, and oh my God, you have to look at her bio. It's crazy. She has projects like art by physicists, because I think in her previous life she is a physicist, and now she does basically AI and everything that is connected to it. And she has this website. It's fairly new. You can basically like. So some of these are my creations, which I created in 3D simulation or AI. You take a picture, you click on that, you go to the next page, you put in your face, and then the AI software basically makes it so that you can see yourself, exchange basically your face for the model's avatar, for the model's face. And you can post it on Instagram, or you can even buy the AI fashion design, and support young designers as well. And some of the stuff, so I'm kind of obsessed right now with dirndls, Bavarian folkloric dresses, and Oktoberfest is coming up soon, so I think it's very timely. So I've been like working heavily into various kind of like dirndls, like what would happen if Chanel or Dior or Jean Galliano would interpret like a dirndl, which is a very traditional kind of like
Fun.
dress. And I had a lot of fun with it, and now we have it on Wearit-AI, so you can see yourself in a dirndl.
So my question is, so how does this work? Because I went on and I was like, okay, is this something that I can buy? Is it something that I just see myself and it's totally just in the metaverse? Like, how does it work?
So basically, you can always like draft it. So you can put your face, take a picture of like a selfie, put it in there. The AI will basically superimpose your face onto the model. Then you can basically buy some credits. And with the credits, you can take the picture, download it. Right now in the draft, I think it has sort of like an overlay. But when you have the credits and you apply them, you can just download it and then you can post it on any social media site.
Gotcha. So
And
this is
I
all,
believe,
it's all digital.
yes, it's all digital. It's,
Gotcha.
it's in the spirit of like Dress X and some of those like, Snapchat kind of like lens ideas with AR and things like that. But this is,
Yeah.
it's really fun and very easy, and just really cool to sort of like see oneself in my creation, which I never put my face in it. So now I'm like, oh my God, that's like great. How would I look in
Yeah.
single? It's really fun.
Yeah, so cool. So cool. And fun. That's
Yeah.
what we like. We like cool and fun.
We like cool and fun and playing around with like Midjourney and all, using up all
Yeah.
my past hours on Midjourney, for example. Yes.
Yes, yes, exactly. Okay, so mouse, stylus, or trackpad?
Okay, three button mouse all the way for me for 3D. And then my trusty Wacom tablet for Adobe stuff, Illustrator and all of that.
Not mad at that. Not mad at that. Yeah. I think I was telling you earlier that class at FIT started yesterday. And one of the classes, the class on Wednesday, we're doing a whole lot of flat sketches. And one of the students had her laptop and she's like, I can't get, something to, and she's like messing around with the trackpad. And I'm like, I really would suggest you get a mouse.
Yes.
And she's like, my other teacher said the same thing. I was like, yeah, we're both right. You should get a mouse. But I've had many students who like they make the trackpad work, and I'm like, okay, that works.
I can barely get my mouse working to do Illustrator sketches. It's so much better with with the Wacom tablet
It is
just really flow.
Yeah.
But the stylus doesn't work for me with 3D. There's too many right click, left click, push the middle, zoom in, zoom out for me to do anything else than the 3-button mouse.
Yeah, yeah. Now I will say that I can do flats with a 3-button mouse, no problem. And the reason for that, I'll get on towards the end of my time when I was freelancing at Hanes Brands. I was using a Wacom tablet. However, for like 15 years before that, I was on a mouse. And the reason was because at that time, especially like early on, it was a luxury to have a Wacom tablet. Like you had to either be like the director of something or you had to be a digital textile artist. Everybody else had to use a mouse. So you kind of had to make it work. So by the time I got to the point where I was going in companies and they were like, oh, do you want a stylist? I was just like, yeah, okay, sure.
Oh no, I've always had the most teeny tiny Wacom tablet. I think the $60 or the $70. And I was like, okay, if you don't give it to me at work, I'll just bring mine from home because I just cannot deal with it. And the mouse. So even since fashion college, we had like very rudimentary sort of tablets there. Mm-hmm. So I've always been working with that. But in 3D, no, just the mouse, I cannot deal with it otherwise.
Yeah. I gotta have a mouse. Well, we are 1 minute to 7 o'clock. I can't believe it. Always goes really fast.
Good timing.
I know, it's crazy. So before we wrap up, I'm going to put you in solo and I want you to tell everyone how they can find you, how they can work with you, how they can support you besides wear it.
Yes. Great. Okay. Well, I have my own website. It's astridhanenkamp.com. And you can find my portfolio there. You can contact me there. I'm also on Instagram, obviously, and on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn for everyone else who doesn't want to leave LinkedIn, that's probably the best way to reach me, just with a quick email. Like I said, I'm freelancing. I'm open to projects with 3D, with traditional black and white Illustrator sketches. I do, I would say my focus is on women's wear, and I'm definitely specialized in sweaters and knitwear, fully fashioned everything. I've worked in that for like a really long time, and I really love sweaters. So yeah, that's definitely something close to my heart. But 3D is definitely, where I think it's going. So, but yeah, shoot me an email on my website or on LinkedIn. And that's the best way to reach me.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Everyone, thank you for coming. I'm going to give you one more round of applause. Thank you again to Astrid for coming, for being here, for being the guest for this month. And thank you to everyone who tuned in and commented. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. And we will see you again next month in the end of September, the last Thursday of September, for our next guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mikael. Thank you,
day,
everyone.
evening, night, whatever. Bye-bye.
Bye.